Hello, my friends. Today we'll start with the fact that another round of negotiations took place in Berlin involving European leaders and a US team. Trump's special envoy, Witkov, said there had been significant progress in talks with the Ukrainian delegation in Berlin and confirmed that a follow-up meeting will take place tomorrow. The meeting in Berlin between President Zelensky, special envoy Witkov, Jared Kushner, and the US and Ukrainian delegations lasted more than 5 hours. The parties held in-depth discussions on a peace settlement plan, economic programs, and other issues. Significant progress was achieved, and another meeting will be held tomorrow morning, Witkov wrote on X. However, every time after negotiations, we hear that progress has been made. Yet the war still doesn't stop. At the same time, Stub said that a peace agreement to end the war in Ukraine is closer than ever during the 4 years of war.
I think we are in a critical moment in negotiations for peace, and at the same time, we're probably closer to a peace agreement that we have been at any time during these 4 years. And of course, we're working right now pretty much on three documents. One is a framework document of a 20-point peace plan. The second one is security guarantees for Ukraine. And the third one is the reconstruction of Ukraine. So we're looking at the details together with the Americans, Europeans, and the Ukrainians.
But everyone is forgetting one very important detail. No matter what Europe, Ukraine, and the United States agree on, Russia doesn't want to accept it. Yesterday, Ushakov clearly stated that most likely any amendments to the agreement wouldn't suit Russia, and that they want Ukraine to accept only Russia's plan in full, 100%.
I don't know what position they will put down on paper after these consultations, but it's unlikely that it will be anything good.
The Russian ambassador to the UK also confirmed that they are not interested in an agreement. They want Ukraine's complete capitulation.
A 28-point plan. I don't know whether you know what was in it. And then there was a new version that he talked about last week. What do you understand his plan to be?
Definitely, it should not be a deal. At the moment, we have to talk about surrender because Kiev should think not about the deal, but definitely the situation on the ground.
So there is no doubt that Russia will continue to drag out the negotiation process. But today marks the second day of discussions on the agreement, and the work is still ongoing. Negotiations between Ukraine and the United States will continue on December 15th, according to the German outlet Handelsblatt. Today's meeting lasted more than 5 hours, and its details haven't been disclosed. Earlier, President Zelensky said that the most difficult issues in the talks are territory and security guarantees. Now let's move to the situation along the front line, starting with the Kostyantynivka direction. Here, the Russians are not reducing the activity. They are storming Pretechene, the outskirts of Kostyantynivka, Pleshiyivka, Klebanbyk, and are breaking through toward Rusin Yar. It is also reported that yesterday the Russians carried out a mechanized assault. The Russians once again went on the offensive using armored vehicles near Kostyantynivka, writes the 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade. After several weeks of infantry assaults in the Kostyantynivka direction, the Russian army has once again deployed armored equipment. In the area of responsibility of the 90th Separate Mechanized Brigade, the Russians attempted to break through with two armored personnel carriers carrying infantry, but the attack was detected in time and destroyed. According to the Chief Sergeant of the 90th Brigade, Vitaly Piasecki, improved weather conditions allowed Ukrainian forces to quickly spot the equipment. The Russians' APCs were reinforced with welded metal, so dozens of drones had to be used to destroy them. Several units of the Russian army, mainly rifle regiments, are operating against the Holodny Yar fighters. Ukrainian armed forces soldiers also report that assaults by small groups are continuing at maximum intensity. The Russians have begun actively probing the southern flank of the city, acting cautiously without sudden rushes but with a clear direction. Small advances have been recorded west of Ivanopillia toward Bereztok. Their objective is to get inside the settlement, secure positions among the buildings, and then gradually push toward the southern outskirts of Kostyantynivka, steadily increasing the pressure. Now let's move to the Dobropillia direction. Here the Russians are assaulting the town of Bilitske, Nikanorivka, Nove Shahove, and Sofivka. They're also pushing closer to the village of Torske. However, over the past 24 hours, there have been no changes. All attacks have been successfully repelled. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Rodinske, Marnograd, and Grishine and are pushing along the western flank. They're carrying out up to 50 attacks per day, but have made no new gains so far, and the front line remains unchanged. Ukrainian forces soldiers reported that the Russians are actively pulling additional reserves into this direction, so the situation remains tense. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians continue attacks inside the town and are assaulting Dachne. However, over the past 24 hours, there have been no changes and all attacks have been successfully repelled. In the direction of the settlement of Pokrovske in the Dnipropetrovsk region, activity has decreased. The Russians are assaulting Alexandrograd and trying to push past Oleksiivka. But all attacks are being repelled and there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians are assaulting the village of Dobropillia, although according to Russian statements, they have already captured it. Fighting for Huliaipole itself it's also ongoing. At the same time, since yesterday, there have been reports that Varvarivka has also come under Russian control and that the front line now runs along the river. However, the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed the loss of these settlements and reports that fighting is still ongoing there. Therefore, we are waiting to see how the situation develops. Within the city itself, the gray zone is slightly expanding, and the Russians are attempting to enter the city. For now, the Ukrainian forces continue to destroy them, and there have been no major changes over the past day. However, the Russians continue to strike the city with FAB bombs, and another video has appeared claiming to show a strike on Ukrainian forces positions. Unfortunately, a large building was completely destroyed by a powerful FAB strike. As a result, the challenge situation remains extremely difficult. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians continue to assault Stepnohirsk and are pushing from Plavny toward Primorsk. At the same time, the Russians have begun claiming that they are advancing toward the village of Lukyanivsk in order to bypass Stepnohirsk. Because of this, there is a possibility that they may attempt a breakthrough in a new direction, since they haven't had any success here for a long time. For now, however, the fighting continues. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are not conducting any new assaults, but shelling continues, and the situation hasn't changed for the past 24 hours. Now let's move to the Siversk direction. Here, the Russians are assaulting Yampil, Platonivka, and are breaking through near Serebryanka. At the same time, everyone is staying quiet about the serious problems in this area. The Russians are already advancing past Siversk and have established positions in Svyatopokrovske, but the Ukrainian forces are successfully eliminating them there. So it's clear that the Russians are gradually trying to push beyond Siversk. This means that the movement toward Slavyansk has effectively already begun. In the Lyman direction, the Russians are assaulting Zarychne, Drobyshevo, Novoselivka, and Novy Mir, and are breaking through near the village of Seredny. However, so far, all attacks are being repelled and the front line remains unchanged. In the Borova direction, the Russians are not conducting any new assaults, and all previous attacks have failed, so the front line remains unchanged. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are breaking through near the villages of Doroshivka and Peshane. But the Ukrainian forces continue counterattacks in Kupiansk and clearing operations in the city are ongoing. The Russians are not giving up and keep trying to hold their defenses, hoping that the main forces will break through to them and expand a corridor for retreat. So far, however, there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. In the Velykyi Burluk direction, the Russians are not conducting any new assaults and the situation remains stable. In the Vovchansk area, the Russians are attacking Prelipka, Lyman, Vilcha, and continue fighting for the outskirts of Vovchansk. However, over the past 24 hours, there have been no changes. The Ukrainian forces have successfully repelled all attacks, although the gray zone in this area is expanding. In the Sumy direction, the Russians are trying to break through the border to expand the front line. However, they have achieved no success and the front line remains stable in this area. Meanwhile, strikes against Russia continues. It was reported that explosions were recorded in Moscow during the night. In addition, there was a missile strike on a power plant in Belgorod. The Ukrainian missile forces struck the Luch power plant in Belgorod. Presumably, a follow up strike was carried out on the VRP transformers. At the same time, Stefanishina stated that there are still no concrete decisions regarding security guarantees for Ukraine from the US. The document regarding US security guarantees must be legally binding to prevent its cancellation in the future, Stefanishina said. The Ukrainian ambassador to the US said this in an interview with Fox News and added that no agreement has yet been reached on the form of the document concerning the guarantees. I am confident that the US leadership will ensure that a workable form is found. One option is approval by Congress of this agreement, which must be signed into law. So we'll see how this works and, most importantly, the essence. Once the essence is defined, then the form will be agreed upon. Overall, the negotiations are ongoing and will likely continue for several more months. But friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.